how can you be sure that you may have autism? Obviously, going for a autism assessment in Australia these days is very expensive. Like, how much is it? Probably like $1,500, maybe $2,000. I'm not sure on the exact numbers, but it can be pretty expensive. But before that, you've got to try doing some sort of self-diagnosis to really know, well, do you have it? You don't want to be self-diagnosing yourself, but I'll be telling you the 3 ways you could tell maybe you should go get an autism assessment. Maybe you should see about paying that money and getting yourself assessed by professionals. So number 1 is sensory overloads. So how does sensory overloads look to an autistic? Obviously, because I only can see myself and I only have witnessed what I have witnessed in my own body. So it's very difficult because other people could have different things. Like, for example, I would say I'm more of a visual kind of overloader. So my sound isn't too overloaded. It is a bit. But I would say my vision, I can really get overstimulated with my vision. It's very difficult to describe as an autistic how I can unfocus my vision and the way I see things, and it's like I'm seeing it but I'm not. It's very difficult to describe. So to put it into simple perspective, if you feel overwhelmed with that particular thing, well, then you might have a sensory overload. Say with sound, if you feel like you freeze up with sound, or you get really hyper, what do you call it? When you get really just hyper, or it could be the complete opposite. You could shut down, or you could get very hyperactive. Two ends of the spectrum, really. So in my experience with sensory overload, I found when I was at my saddest and my lowest, when I was not in a happy state, I found I found myself to be more overloaded with senses, because my body obviously wasn't working to how it should be. So as I started to get my body right, and this has been about probably 4 years now, I've started to feel better, and my senses haven't actually been as overloaded as I was. So that's one way I actually combated being overstimulated. So the second way to tell you may be autistic is if you stim a lot. So when I was younger, I used to do this really, really nice stim feeling. I don't do it anymore. Sometimes I adopt other stims. Sometimes I change my stims. I actually have a stim. My mum believes it's a stim, but I don't believe it is. Like, I move my neck around a bit like this because I have a really tight neck and I have pain. So I always tell my mum, yeah, it's not a stim, but maybe it is. Maybe it is a stim. Maybe I'm not analysing it. Maybe I'm not understanding it as much as I think I am. So maybe I am stimming. But yeah, one thing I used to do as a child is I used to like flick my hands like this. Flick, flick, flick. And then that probably lasted about 4 years. I got it later in life, but it ended up going away, so I ended up stopping. Maybe that's because of the work I've been doing, maybe because I'm more hands-on and I don't need to do it anymore. But yeah, that's the second way of knowing if you may be autistic. So stimming can be movements, it could be sound, it could be yeah. I believe the third one is probably my favorite, because this is what gets the best out of autistics. This is what can make us really good, but at the same time, it could make us really bad. And that is your focus. So obviously autistics with special interests, they can get a really high focus, but maybe with something they're not interested in, they won't get any focus at all. So for example, I would call that like hyper focus, and then this is probably technically 2 points, but I'll put it into one. So it'd be hyper fixation or under fixation, no fixation. So the good thing about that is when you're doing a task that you really love to do and you really enjoy it, and it makes you feel a certain way, you can get immersed in that feeling. You can get immersed in that task, and you can do better than maybe what anyone else could do doing that task. You might have had this situation where you've just talked about your favorite interest a little bit too much. I've had that too. I've had that where I've over spoke about my interest because I'm so focused on that interest, and I'm always thinking about it, and I'm always focused on it. But another way of this could also be in your vision too. So for example, I can get really hyper fixated on like birds, or say if there's a bird, I can just look at that bird and just feel the bird, you know, I can feel it. Very hard to describe. This has been a very difficult video for me because I struggle to explain how I feel, and I struggle to put it in a way that's easy to understand. So I hope this video has give you a bit of value of maybe, you know, getting an autism assessment. There is a couple other things, but I'll save that for another video. So they're the 3 signs that you may have autism. So I hope you like this video, like and subscribe. And yeah, have a look at my other content. Thank you.